easier it is to sell souls.
There is a new price on freedom, so buy into it while supplies last. Changes need to be made. No more curbside baggage. 7 p.m. curfew. Racial profiling will continue with less bitching. We've unified over who to kill, so until I find more relevant scripture to quote, remember, our God is bigger, stronger, smarter, and much wealthier. So wave those flags with pride, especially the white part.
We're selling addictive 24-hour candlelight vigils in TVs. Freedom will be defended at the cost of civil liberties. The viewers are glued to television screens, stuck, cause lots of things seem too sick. I use opportunities to pluck heartstrings for theme music. I show you which culture to pump you.
Welcome.
We are live, huh?
We are live.
Sweet. Well, welcome to the Grift. I'm the Reverend Al.
I'm Gonzo.
And, it's been a week, as always.
I sure am excited about everything life has to offer.
We are, well, I mean, as you can see from the image behind us, markets are falling apart again.
In spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
Oof. This is the single dumbest self-inflicted wound this country has ever inflicted upon itself.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not even close.
Not even
This
a little close. So, for those not paying too much attention, we have now hit 180 countries with tariffs. There's this base 10% across the board, except a small handful of countries that have been excluded.
And we're going to make those penguins on McDonald Island pay.
Yeah.
Because they've been ripping us off too long. Last 100 years.
Including a uninhabited island that's got nothing but two. Yep.
It's McDonald Island and Heard Island. They're both uninhabited.
Sure.
McDonald Island has a lot of penguins.
Yep. So the penguins have been hit with some tariffs.
Treacherous bastards, though. You can't trust the little guys.
And let's see. Russia, Belarus, North Korea, and Cuba have been left off the list. I feel okay about the Cuba part because, I mean, you know, we've been fucking them over forever.
I feel like our sanctions more than make up for it.
Yeah. But
the in total economic embargo, like...
Right. The rest of the world...
What is there to tariff anyway?
The rest of the world, however, has been hit with a bunch of tariffs that the way we came up with it is stupid.
And my understanding in general is that it is a blanket 10% tariff on all imports.
Yep.
Everywhere, from everywhere in the world. 10%. And that the reciprocal tariffs are the added percentage above that 10%.
Right.
So that takes us up to, I believe, like a 64% tariff on Chinese goods.
It's insane. And where they came up with this reciprocal idea, it's not reciprocal. It's that anybody who tells you that is...
No. And they fundamentally don't understand how trade deals work and what trade is. Because apparently Donald Trump believes trade bad.
Trade bad.
Trade is bad.
Yeah. But the way that they came up with it had to do with them factoring around basically the trade deficit and not looking at any offsets, any trade deals, any arrangements that we have where we just basically looked at blanket numbers and let ChatGPT write a tariff policy, and it's stupid.
Well, it was probably Grok, but yeah.
It's fundamentally stupid, and no one who understands trade policy, which I don't know enough about, but everybody I do know that understands trade policy or follow it's on Twitter is losing their minds at about how stupid it is.
And it's been fascinating to watch MAGA and Fox News try to spin this as a good thing.
Yeah.
Fox News, Harris Faulkner went out there on Fox News and said that it was just your patriotic duty to be okay with your 401k evaporating and not having a retirement account anymore.
Yeah,
we're at war, you see, and when you're at war, you have to sacrifice. Now, I don't remember us being at war. I remember being told that Donald Trump kept us out of war, and he was the only president that never got us involved in war, and he was the peace president. I remember being told that again and again and again. The entire time he was office, the first time, the entire 4 years he was out of office, and when he was reelected, I was told he was the peace president who wasn't going to get us involved in any goddamn wars. But now we have to sacrifice because apparently we're at war with the entire fucking world.
Yeah, it's like I said, fundamentally stupid. We're not at war with anybody. We're picking fights.
We're picking fights. We might start a war with Denmark over Greenland.
Yeah, we could find ourselves in the middle of a war over Greenland, over trying to annex Canada, over trade. Like this, the stability of the world order as we know it is predicated on all of this trade, with us as the center of the global economy. And we have been the buyer of last resort. We have been the global buyer of everything forever. And that's our role.
And a big part of that is we have the money to buy everyone's stuff.
Yeah.
Because we're fabulously wealthy as a country.
Yeah. And work fetishization, this is what this is. So there's a dumb, and it happens way too much in the left too, this fetishization of work, right?
Toil.
Yeah.
You have to suffer.
Of this idea that we have to suffer and sacrifice and, constantly be laboring rather than selling things. But no, we get
this grind mindset that you see people bragging about working 80 hours a week like they're not being violently exploited just to survive.
Yeah, and mind you, the grind mindset people who say that they're working 80 hours a week to grind are also not really laborers for the most part.
No, they've got a lot of passive income scams set up.
Yeah.
And
they're trying to hustle one scam off the other.
Yeah, you got a lot of people who are involved in MLMs.
Right. So
pretending that that's like a real job.
But let's be real. That was the advantage. That was the trade. That's the deal, right? We get to do things like make podcasts and sell coffee and tea and have restaurants and base our entire economy around services. Both internally and externally, offering services to the world, offering our brain power, offering our skill set to the world.
For the last 70 years, we have been the people that you go to every time you need a question answered.
Yeah.
Our science has been at the forefront of all science.
And
our technology has been there have been a lot of other technological advancements in other countries, but they've been based a lot on basic research we did here.
Exactly. And we have, as part of the deal, get to be this comfortable, wealthy country in the middle of it that doesn't have to toil, doesn't have to give up all of its natural resource and strip mine itself in order for you and I to have food, right?
We could do all the strip mining we want. We don't have certain resources here, period, full stop. They do not exist on the landmass that we control. That's part of the reason why he's so fucking obsessed with Greenland.
Because there's some more of things that we don't have. It's still not the largest fucking source in the world.
If all the ice fucking melts someday, which is not good.
No.
You lose every coastal city in the fucking world.
Yeah. And we are stuck in this cycle of destroying our economy to own the libs or whatever.
And that's the only, I argued a lot with MAGA over the last, I got unusually argumentative on TikTok over the last, week.
Okay.
And it was mostly about due process. Because the way we are handling immigration right now is also as bad as it's been in a century.
More permanent residents disappeared. Another citizen sent off outside of the states, and we're now powerless somehow to get them back.
They are conditioning us, not us, but conditioning us as a culture to accept no one having due process.
Yeah.
They do not want anyone to have due process. They want an accusation to be as good as a conviction and immediate punishment for any wrongdoing. And that's why I have been in endless fucking arguments with people about due process over the last 5 days in particular.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
The fact of the matter is, due process has to exist for everyone and not just citizens, quote unquote, because if it doesn't exist for non-citizens, then how do you prove you're a citizen?
Well, I'll show them my ID. They don't care. They don't have to ask. That's all part, they're
That's the point. That's what I'm getting at. That
yeah.
None of it matters. Every excuse, every reason that you think of for why due process is separate for you, the citizen,
Yeah.
versus the non-citizen, versus the criminal alien or whatever you want to call them, right? The distinction is really clear. There isn't one. It works for now because the courts are not being inundated with a bunch of citizens who've been rounded up and deported, right? By the tens of thousands. Okay, but once there are ruling after ruling protecting their right to disappear non-citizens without due process and to skip all of the laws in place preventing them from doing that. Once the courts uphold that and give it strength, or once they fail to enforce it too many times, then the next step is green card holders. The next step is citizens, and it won't matter because you can't show ID. It doesn't matter if you have identification.
Right, and I had one person who I want to give a shout out for being unusually honest and direct with me. They said, and I quote, "I'll be fine. I'm white."
Yeah,
and that gives away the game because what they believe, what they are too scared to say, except for this guy who implied it. But what they believe fundamentally is that only white people are citizens. If your family has been here for 10 generations and you're black or brown, they do not consider you a citizen. You are not a real American to them. That's their belief. And you have to use that as your baseline for where you start arguing with them if you're going to argue with them, because that's their core belief. If you are not white, you are not a citizen, period, full stop.
And trust me, this won't just fall along color lines. It might at first.
It will. And eventually it'll be like, well, you're the wrong
kind of white.
Kind of white.
Or, barring all of that, it'll be things like having this podcast, right?
Having any politically dissenting views.
Having dissenting views, being in the wrong place, protesting on behalf of anybody who's not white.
Right.
And again, if you want that kind of society, you are not an American. You are as un-American as they fucking come.
And I don't give a shit how many times this country has repeatedly failed to live up to its stated ideals, because it has been failing to live up to its stated ideals since day one. I will fully fucking admit that. That does not change what the stated ideals are and the fact that they are supposed to be our fucking ideals. And if you are fundamentally opposed to those ideals, then you are fundamentally opposed to the idea of what being an American is supposed to mean.
Yep. All right, let's just dig into some headlines and try to keep it concise to them as quick as we can. I mean, we will be going off the rails a lot, I am sure. But we're going to try to keep it tight.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep it tight while going into this with no actual agenda this week.
Yep.
So
let's do this.
This will either be a long and unusually rambling episode, or we will figure out we have reached our point in an hour and decide we want to go home. Wow, he wants to go home, and I want to tear down the green screen and other things. I don't know what.
So, speaking of, the White House fires multiple administration officials after the president meets with far-right activist Laura Loomer.
Yeah, Laura Loomer apparently went in and yelled at the entire National Security Council and Mike Waltz, and then told Donald Trump who he should fire. And she was willing to take off his diaper to blow him, so she gets what she wants.
Right?
She had to take off his diaper and wipe him with a nappy, and then she sucked his cock.
Now, they didn't fire Waltz, though, did they?
I don't believe so, no.
So the one who was the most responsible for that fuck-up.
The guy in charge.
Yeah. Who actually invited the Atlantic.
Yeah, he was the guy who did that.
So the
apparently,
wow.
The speculation that he was trying to invite a different Jeffrey, but because it was on his private phone, he just saw the first name and invited the wrong one. Because there is a Jeffrey R in the group that makes these decisions, like one of the advisors. I can't remember his name.
Wow. And of course, we got. Let's see, what else do we have in the news? Because this is fucking. But Laura Loomer, how are we having this crazy person have any goddamn influence?
She blew him. That's how.
That's still, I wouldn't. And of course, the tariffs are going to rock the economy in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we are at best we are looking at a recession. The Atlanta Fed has just revised its outlook for the first quarter and is saying they expect a 3.7% contraction.
That is a recession.
Contraction.
3.7%.
They were before Inauguration Day. They were expecting a 2.5% increase in GDP in first quarter of 2025. They have revised that down to now they expect to see a 3.7% contraction. Might be a short one. That was 20 minutes.
Yeah, Jesus. All right, we had to swap the battery out there. So
This could be a weird one this week.
yep. So that's a 6-point swing.
Yeah.
That is a 6-point swing from the estimated growth that we were heading towards to the contraction that they're expecting.
Yes.
That's huge.
That
is trillions of dollars.
My favorite thing about this tariffs is he has repeatedly said that the reason the Great Depression happened was because we moved away from tariffs and to an income tax in 1913.
And he's wrong.
And he's wrong because possibly the direct cause of the Depression being what it became, being as bad as it got.
Right. There was the recession itself was going to happen.
The recession was going to happen, but what we call the Great Depression became the Great Depression because largely the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930.
A series of tariffs that made the Depression deepen and worsen and lengthen, right? And it
became a global problem.
Right.
Because it's really easy to forget that the Great Depression did not just hit the United States.
No, it's why the Nazis rose.
That's how we talk about it. That's how we teach it. That's how we think about it. We think about it as a us thing, but it was a global problem. Just like the 2008 recession was global, and that was largely because of our fucking housing market.
Right.
Like, we have destroyed the global economy multiple times.
Yeah. Now, we actually, the Depression actually hit us the hardest.
Yeah.
Because we had a huge booming economy that hadn't really been, like, it had been on this long stretch of growth, and then we went oop, right? And
yeah, it had been 100 years since the previous economic downturn severe enough to call a depression had happened.
Yeah.
In 1828.
All right.
And you know who was president right leading up to that?
That was
Andrew fucking Jackson.
Yes, it was.
Andrew fucking Jackson. Who was deciding to like just close the central bank.
That was bad. But this.
We had our first depression.
We go down by cell phones whenever.
No other country can damage the United States, period, full stop. We can only hurt ourselves. We have been in, because where we are geographically located, 3,000 miles away from Europe and 4,000 miles away from Asia.
Yep.
We have never really been, I mean, since we stole California and Texas, we have not really had problems with Mexico.
No.
We haven't had problems with Canada since 1812.
Yeah.
It's been a long fucking time. So, and that has allowed us to just be buffered, and we can only be harmed by ourselves.
And it's political cell phones.
Yeah.
That's
and that was.
This is what bothers me about you, the electorate out there.
That was okay.
That you don't pay attention.
Yeah.
Like you don't care about the overall state of the country. You think you do. You say you do.
And it's not just that you won't pay attention. It's that you will aggressively refuse to listen to the people who do pay attention, who are telling you what's happening.
100%.
You don't want to hear it.
You think you're better than it. You know what? I am going to talk about I want to say how many times I've heard like your average Joe Schmo person, like even like folks like my parents, who talk about people as if like people who know things think they're better than them.
Yeah.
But really, the attitude is in the inverse. People who don't know shit and think they know shit, people who aggressively think that they want to tell it like it is and that the world should work a certain type of way, they are the ones with the disdain who think they're better than people who learned what they're talking about. They disdain people who know what the fuck they're talking about.
They revile expertise.
Yeah. And you're
like, as a concept, they revile expertise.
The way that you fucking hate the elites for knowing better is damaging and disgusting, and it makes you fucking pathetic. And the only good news for you is that for every one of you, it takes fucking 50 of them to match it as far as energy, and that's the inverse. There's 50 of you for every one of them, right?
Yeah.
There are 50 fucking idiots out there at the bar who say, I wish the world worked this way. And they're all like, yeah, fuck those guys. And then there's one of them. And you know what? I wish that we could fix that. I wish that everybody had more expertise in this country. I think that part of our dumb work fetishization is part of the problem because we incentivize people to just, think of things in simple solutions and not go out there and become part of that service economy, part of that expertise economy.
While at the same time refusing to accept the simple solutions to problems that do exist.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you want to fucking solve a housing crisis? Give people housing.
Yeah.
Give people housing.
Stop this whole residential zoning nonsense for single family.
No.
End it. I get it. And especially, those on the left, they're like, well, this helps developers. Yeah, sure. I get it.
You can still regulate them.
Right. You can still regulate them.
It's just, the problem is, nobody wants multifamily housing built in their neighborhood.
Yep. Go ahead and build affordable housing. Where do we want it?
Not here.
Right? When do we want it? Now.
No.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
They want it 10 years ago, but they don't want it anywhere near them.
Right. And what's funny is, you don't want it in your city centers because, well, that's prime urban real estate. We can't give that up. You don't want it in your fucking suburbs. Mm-hmm. And you can't just put poor people in rural areas with no public transit system and expect them to be able to get back and forth to work. So that's not a solution either, even though we have tons of open, empty land in this fucking country.
Yep.
We have to build up, not out. And that's always been our goddamn problem. We should have fucking... I was on TikTok earlier.
Uh-huh.
And I will say this, all right? The TikTok ban is set to go into effect April 5th if it happens again. I will not miss the app if it goes away. Okay. I will not give a fuck if it goes away this time. It has been shit ever since it came back from its last ban.
Whatever they did to suck up to the administration.
Every single thing that was good about it is gone.
Yeah.
And alternatives are already popping up. I downloaded Skylight 2 days ago, which is it's piggybacked off Blue Sky.
Okay.
It's a video sharing site. It is very similar. It doesn't have all the features, but it's still only in beta. It's available on the Apple and now Google Play Store.
Okay.
Like I said, it doesn't have all the features. It doesn't have a stitch feature. It doesn't have a repost feature as far as I can tell. It's very simple right now, but it's also in the first wave of public beta.
All right.
So it's built off Blue Sky. Neptune is going live at the end of this month. That is another decentralized TikTok clone.
Okay.
That sounds fascinating. There are going to be alternatives now because we almost lost it once and people didn't like that. So they started building alternatives and now it sucks. So that's where they're going to move. Even if it doesn't get banned, you're going to see an exodus off the platform just because of how bad it's gotten.
Yeah. And since they sucked up to the administration to keep from being banned the last time, everything they've done has been, it has made the experience different and not in a positive way. And it is fomenting more dumb ideas and distrust. Same with Meta. It is getting worse.
Meta is getting worse.
I'm being fed so much dumb right-wing content, and I can't tell which parts are bots and which aren't anymore.
The future of the internet, if it's going to survive, needs to be decentralized federated systems.
Yeah.
Like Mastodon, Blue Sky, these platforms that are being built on the backs of those platforms because the infrastructure of Mastodon has been used for certain other things, and the infrastructure of there's a Blue Sky alternative to Instagram now.
Nice. And of course, we just also need to put all of the tech billionaires into a meat grinder and feed them to dogs.
They're fat and gristly.
Yeah, that's where they belong. fed
That's
to
a lot
dogs.
of extra like protein and gristle.
Yep. All right, so other bullshit in the news. So as far as American news goes, we got on the national level, Republicans are planning to skirt Senate rules to push through more tax cuts. So they're going to try to they're planning to use the nuclear option to steer around the filibuster and other tricks that they can use to keep things in place. So they're going to basically blow up all the Senate rules that allow senators to block things, so they can push through some tax cuts.
Well, what the Democrats are going to need to doing is they're going to need to take a page from they're going to need to take a page from the Republicans circa about 1858.
Yeah.
About 1856, 1858, when the Republicans first started becoming a thing, they had a very specific way of getting their point across in the chamber. And it involved hatchets and whooping sticks.
And threats to duel.
To duel. Fuck it. Bring back threats to duel.
Yeah, Mark Wayne Mullen tried that, but he sounded like that fucking cowboy cosplaying son of a bitch. It's just sad.
Did you just see that argument he got in with some there was this woman, she was on TikTok, she ended up going viral because
I saw that shit.
Her husband is stationed overseas right now.
Yeah.
And she destroyed him.
And he decided, instead of responding to her, to make a response about people like that, and then called her un-American. It was pathetic. Fuck Mark Wayne Mullen. Again, somebody who could be fed to dogs, and I would be happy.
Yeah, Mark Wayne Mullen is bad by Oklahoma standards. Look, Oklahoma has given me a couple of things that I love. I have friends in Oklahoma, right? Who I care about. Wonderful people. My favorite band ever is the Flaming Lips from 1983 until 2002. They're from Oklahoma City.
Uh-huh.
There is not a set of albums I love more than their albums from that era.
Okay.
That's it. Everything else in Oklahoma is terrible.
Yeah, fuck Oklahoma.
Fuck Oklahoma.
All right. So,
stop giving us Mark Wayne Mullen.
So we're about to get another $5 trillion added to the debt from this nonsense between the spending and the tax cuts.
Right.
And $4 trillion of it is the tax cuts.
And if their tariff estimates are right, there's going to be a $600 billion tax increase on the American people yearly.
Yep.
On top of the tax plan.
Yeah, for those of you who thought that everything was about costs and prices and that Donald Trump was going to save your pocketbook, boy, did you fuck up.
If you really want to understand tariffs and their impact on you, you just need to do one really simple thing. Think of them as a sales tax.
Yep.
That's all they are. They are a sales tax on imported items.
Right. And since we import 70% of what we eat, use, drink, whatever.
I know you say you want manufacturing jobs back, but I assure you, you do not.
No.
They used to be great jobs. They used to be good paying jobs. They were always shit jobs.
Yeah.
But they used to be jobs that paid well and gave you good benefits because of unions. And what don't we fucking have anymore?
We don't have unions. Also, again, you were right. They were always shit jobs. They paid well, okay? But your lifespan was cut. Your body was put into worse shape. You did not get to enjoy that comfortable retirement the union got for you.
Because you were dead at 50.
Yeah. This work is hard. It's hard on your body. It reduces your lifespan. It reduces your physical capabilities later in life. And in exchange, they used to pay you well for it. Yeah. Now we are paying other people relatively well for what their countries used to make. Right.
We have raised
to do it to their bodies, so that we don't have to.
As bad as the conditions are for a lot of the people who work in factories making our stuff overseas, in most instances in those countries, the standard of living has gone up because the amount of disposable income the average citizen has increased exponentially.
And they have more infrastructure, and they're not dying of parasites and disease at the rates that they used to.
That is especially true of a country like Vietnam.
Exactly. And so you can decry the exploitation because it is there, but at the same time, before they were working the factory jobs, things weren't great,
and it's
things were not good,
and it's not.
They had a revolution about the economy, right? Like they had a socialist revolution before they got factories.
Yeah.
Think about it for a minute.
One thing you have to say is a lot of things. This is particularly true of the left. They will talk about how people in this country only make this number of dollars per hour or this number of dollars per day, without giving any explanation of what the buying power of that is in their economy. Because I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much you can buy in a country like Vietnam making $1 an hour compared to what I can buy making $40 an hour.
Yeah, that dollar an hour.
I don't know, especially when you have a government that provides you a lot of services.
Yep. And their government doesn't provide them nearly as much as we would like, because it's a poor country.
Yeah.
But
they're doing as well as they can with what they have.
They have a relatively universal healthcare system, but that $1 an hour is roughly the equivalent of $30 to $40 an hour here, and that's yes, they can't buy a lot of nice fancy things that are still priced out because your nice DSLR camera that records this is still expensive overseas, right?
Right.
So not all of them are buying that stuff. But that's fine.
But their daily living expenses?
Oh, much handled. Yeah, that is the trade-off.
I don't know if I have not had the opportunity to travel abroad personally.
I have. It's fun.
But every one of my friends has. And the thing that I am told over and over and over again is how mind-bogglingly inexpensive fresh food is everywhere else in the world.
Yeah,
it is so cheap to get good, fresh,
particularly
especially
outside
produce.
of the West.
Yeah,
particularly outside in the West.
Fruits
also,
and vegetables in particular, it's they're goddamn near free.
Yep. Now, mind you,
in other parts of the world,
they also have seasons, right?
Yeah.
For food, we get this massive magical advantage of not having seasons for shit because we import stuff or we grow it around the country. We have so much abundance that we overlook.
Right. And you know what?
And it's expensive. That abundance is costly.
If there is an upside to this madness, if we can get through it without true total economic collapse, if we can get through this in a way that we can recover, maybe it will help us have a better perspective on the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And how interdependent we all are on each other, how much we get from them, how much we are permanently incapable of providing for ourselves that they can provide for us. There are food you just can't grow here.
Right.
Just doesn't. I saw some fucking idiot who was like, what do I care if they put a tariff on coffee? I'm just going to buy Folgers.
Yeah. It's stupid. We know this is stupid. You're going to buy Folgers. We don't grow Folgers here either. Nobody grows coffee in the U.S. except for Hawaii.
Yeah. And, they should probably be an independent nation.
Eric Adams, he's going to run for mayor of New York again as an independent. That's funny.
Yeah, good luck, Eric.
Godspeed.
If he splits the vote between him and the Republican, they might end up with a full-blown socialist mayor in New York.
Now, the one magical thing about Mr. Adams that I will give him credit for is that the courts did go, so this quid pro quo thing, you got the quid, but you can't force the pro quo. They required them to dismiss the charges with prejudice, so they can't bring them back. The court was like, yeah, sure, the deal works, except this part. You go fuck yourself. Which, thank you, courts in New York, for that one, I guess. Federal court, you saved democracy mildly there, a little bit, even though you did it for a piece of shit. I did not like the precedent that you can force a politician to basically kowtow to your political agenda, or you get to charge them with a crime.
I have this weird sense, and maybe this is just me being too optimistic, which I am not known for. Mm-hmm. I'm not known for being irrationally optimistic. I think that between some of the really egregious moves ICE has been making and the complete and total across the board, crossing all demographic lines, damage that these tariffs are going to do to the economy for everyone who is not a billionaire. Mm-hmm. We might be at a turning point, at least in public sentiment, where people who, particularly Republicans, who maybe they aren't super excited about all this, but they're
Right.
too afraid to say anything. Maybe if it gets to a point where there is enough public outcry, just barely enough of them will find some goddamn gonads and be willing to at least prevent worse things from happening.
Right.
Even if they're not willing or capable of undoing what's being done, maybe they will fight to prevent worse. And I tell you what gives me some extra hope in that regard. Elon fucking losing his Supreme Court race in
want to talk about that
Wisconsin
one later. But yeah.
after spending $26 million. Because one thing that does is, one, it shows that you can throw a ton of money at a race and not win.
Yep.
And it's also shown that is especially true if you are Elon Musk and everyone fucking hates you.
Yeah.
So his threat to, like, I will pay for your the primary against you if you don't do exactly what we say, lost at least half its teeth.
Yes. That's huge. It's important. He should not be able to just bully his way around the elections. And he should be charged with trying to buy votes. But, hey, that's just my opinion, I guess. All right. Department of Education is going to require K through 12 schools to comply in their anti-discrimination rules with Students versus Harvard. So yeah, they're going to pretend that discriminating against white people is a form of discrimination, and they're going to have to take steps to certify that they're not, or else they're going to lose federal funding.
I'm going to try to word this in a way that I am not violating the terms of service of any possible social media platform. I believe that it is one of history's greatest moral failures that at no point in time have white people collectively, as a group,
Right.
been oppressed in the way that they think they have been oppressed.
Oh, sure.
Because if someone had attempted to do to us what these people think is being done to them at some point in the past, we would all have a lot better perspective on, like, I don't know, how to get along with each other.
Absolutely. And now, before anybody out there jumps in the comments and talks about, like, treatment of the Irish or what have you,
They weren't considered white.
right? Like, that's like, yeah, one, whiteness as a concept evolved after that, like,
Right.
to a
large degree,
to a large
yeah.
degree, and two, individual oppression from one group of white people against another group of white people never has that same kind of, like, othering connotation at the end of the day.
Right.
Once a piece is solved, once there is some form of normalization in relations between the two communities, right? Then you get that, like, cultural drift and cultural blending again. They start seeing each other as human, right?
Right.
And it's there's no external visible barrier that creates a us versus them mentality after that's done, right? So, you can treat the Irish like shit forever and not see them as human, quote unquote. But once some peace is established and an Irishman moves to fucking England or an Englishman moves to Ireland and then they have kids and shit, guess what?
And
they're all people, right? And that's how that functions every time.
And sadly, this is going to be a mentality to some extent or another in the United States until, I would say, probably until there have been 2 full generations living in this country where there was not a white majority, where we were majority minority, a plurality country,
right?
Where no group made up more than 49% of the population. Until you have a couple of generations of that, and you haven't seen, like, the other minorities stage this ridiculous backlash against white people, will white people be like, oh, okay, maybe we were overreacting the last 400 years.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it's going to take at least 2 generations. I don't get to live to see that because that demographic shift doesn't happen for like another 20 years.
Right.
And then you're looking at another 30 years after that.
I mean,
I hope I don't live to see that, but I'm doing the math in my head, and God damn it, I might.
I mean,
I just don't have to deal with the next 50 years until we get there.
With any luck, we might accidentally see a white genocide, and then they'll fucking calm down. We'll, like, I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. We're working on deserving it.
Actually experiencing oppression does give you a much better understanding of what actual oppression is.
Yep. All right. So, of course, after promising RFK Jr. has gutted the public records teams at HHS. So That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Our ability to get public records from his department has basically evaporated.
They also completely gutted the CDC.
Yeah.
Just...
the world relies on this to keep itself safe and alive.
I know there are things in this world that frighten you. I know there are things in this world that make you guys uncomfortable. It's understandable. Things are scary. Disease is scary. Just pretending it's not real, which is what it feels like y'all are trying to do, doesn't make it go away. We create... whatever we call civilization, we create out of our fucking heads. We made all this shit up. We can change that all we want, whenever we want. It's one of the reasons why so many of our problems are so frustrating, because we could just decide not to have them anymore. But there are things we cannot control. And the natural world and its bacterium and viruses and fungi is one of them. Like, that exists. We are a part of the natural world. But that system works outside of us and does not give a shit how we think or feel. We can't just vibe our way out of it.
Yep.
And I don't know. Like, you just it doesn't work that way.
No, he doesn't. But I mean,
it's wishful thinking.
We are stuck with this administration doing the nonsense it's doing, and we're just going to keep having to suffer the consequences. That's good on us, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. Of course, that Dow. We've lost 4% on the S&P, 1,400 points in the Dow. Everything is just kind of imploding, and it looks like it's going to be really bad for our agriculture industry. Farmers are looking to get gutted in this set of tariffs, and it's going to be bad.
Who did they overwhelmingly vote for?
Trump, of course. But,
So first he took all your laborers.
Yep.
Because... you didn't think he would actually deport your farm workers. It's not who he was talking about.
No.
He was talking about the criminals. This does remind me. One fun argument I have started to get into with more dipshits over due process is they're like, they're here illegally. They're not under the jurisdiction of the United States because they're here illegally. Okay, then one, if you're not under the jurisdiction, you can't be here illegally because you're not under the jurisdiction of our laws. Our laws don't apply to you anymore. There is no such thing as legal or illegally. It also means you can't be convicted of any crime.
Yeah, that's...
They're basically saying that every undocumented migrant, and by their extension, because they do not believe anyone here has migrated legally, all immigrants, regardless of immigration status, have diplomatic immunity.
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. Fine. I'm okay with that. I have not noticed the migrants being the problem. I have not noticed immigrants being the problem.
So, layoffs. Doge has driven the U.S. labor market downward by just the government layoffs alone.
Been a couple 100,000, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's driving increased unemployment, which... you're taking a bunch of highly qualified individuals that were actually already working for less than market rate for the most part, because government jobs, well, the benefits are nice, right? And the pay is okay. Compared to private sector equivalents at the same levels of education, don't pay nearly as much. Right.
Like, people who
with exceptions. But
by and large, people who get into civil service jobs are genuine civil servants.
Yep,
like they're genuinely interested in working for the people.
Exactly. And they're interested in the topic that they studied.
Right.
So they had this interest in this field, right? And that field relates to public policy, and they then want to be of service to the world.
That's why
that's the chain of events.
That's why so many of our committed scientific researchers are more apt to work for the government, even though it pays less, because they don't have to worry about their research being predicated upon a profit motive of a corporation.
Exactly. Which allows their funding to continue normally and in normal conditions without the pressure to produce a product that's profitable. Right.
Profit is not a consideration at all.
Yeah. It's the pure research. And pure research is where we get all this fucking profit from at the end of the day. Like, it's just that companies don't want to invest in something that they can't even, you can't bank on. You can't even,
like, that's the thing.
It's not just that you can't guarantee it, it's that you can't even reasonably guess that this chain of research that you're going to be doing is going to lead to something profitable.
And you're not going to have any corporation dump tons of money into research if they run the risk of finding out that like the entire idea they were studying was wrong.
Right.
Like that the entire premise was just fallacious.
Yeah, they will dump money into known science that already has a track, and then unique ideas to build off of that, right?
Yeah.
Sure. They will dump tons of money into that kind of research, right? Because it can make them a lot of money.
Yeah.
Tons of it. Once we've mapped the genome and we have an idea of what works certain ways, they'll put a lot of money into trying to find a gene therapy that they can sell to make rich people look younger.
But the roadmap that they used to get there was funded by public money.
Exactly.
It was not designed to have a profit.
And that's where we're stuck. And now, looks like a bunch of Trump's advisors really don't like Musk at all, and there's some infighting going on.
That was inevitable.
Yeah.
That was inevitable. I don't know that he's going to make it to 100 days.
Yeah,
we're close, but I don't know that he's going to make it.
But at the same time, it looks like they're trying to find ways of kind of.
I'm going to have a lot to cut off. It was just recording a black screen the entire time.
Oh, great.
We were outside.
It's funny because I listen and watch every episode after we drop them to see where they're at. There are a lot of times where we talk about, we're going to edit that out.
We never do.
That they stay in.
Never do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's important to see how the sausage is made.
Whew. Yeah, we make the sausage. So we decided,
Malort, because those pants aren't going to shit themselves. Which is a meme Malort Jepson shared today.
I fucking love
those
Malort.
Pants aren't going to shit themselves.
I mean,
I seen it happen.
Yep. My favorite, I still love that moment at Riot Fest when I ordered the 2 shots of Malort so the ex-girlfriend could try it for the first time. And the bartender at the festival goes, 2 shit your pants specials coming right up. That was fun.
Yeah.
Riot
Fest was great. 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. That was
Pre-Sonenrod Danzig playing Misfits tunes.
Danzig.
Oh, Glenn.
Danzig.
You son of a bitch.
What the hell was with that shirt?
For fucking years, we've been able to say, it's like, well, at least Glenn isn't Michael Graves, who's a fucking Proud Boy. He's got that going for him. Glenn is cool. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
Fuck you for that. Man, if you don't know, look up Danzig's new T-shirt. Just Google Danzig new shirt.
And I don't know if you noticed in the one pic, it looked like it was going for $80.
I mean, I might buy one as a collector's item because he's totally getting canceled after this.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's already like impossible to buy online. Like I think it was a show exclusive. They were doing there was a small West Coast tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, what a decision. Decisions were made. And in this case, using the black sun that has a history.
Yeah.
It's a cool symbol. It's really cool. But it's very Nazi.
Where were we before we had to?
We were. Where the fuck were we?
I think we were ranting about something.
We were ranting about something. There's tariffs, and more tariffs, obviously. Oh yeah, the EU. It was Doge layoffs.
Doge layoffs.
Unemployment. Yeah.
Right.
So all these experts in their fields with degrees are now laid off when things were already getting tight for people who had advanced degrees. The job market was actually not great for those who were like looking for senior positions and upper management.
I've heard stories of people looking for jobs for 2 years.
Yeah. I know
putting
people
in literally thousands of applications and maybe getting 3 interviews that ended up being for jobs that didn't really existed.
Yeah. And that's, it's been a tough market out there for people with real expertise. And now we've just dumped a couple 100,000 people with real expertise out into the job market to compete against them.
We know someone who's having their were you naughty in the group chat review today.
Is that
at
today?
DOD. Yeah.
Oh boy, good luck to her.
Yep.
Fingers crossed. All right, so yeah, that's going to damage us. Meanwhile, the EU is planning retaliatory tariffs and an adjustment in their trade policy.
Yeah, and like I mentioned when we were outside, I don't know the veracity of this. I don't know if it's something that's going to come to fruition. Apparently, there have been certain EU member states who have floated the idea of completely cutting the U.S. off from trade entirely.
Yep.
Just no European goods entering the United States or being bought from the United States.
Now, I don't see that actually happening, but I mean, it
would be just a nightmare to pull off, and I just don't think anybody wants to do that.
Right. But hammering us with some retaliatory tariffs on a lot of key items that we export would just shred us some more. UK is also currently drafting a list of items they plan to hit with tariffs. Meanwhile, auto prices are going to climb right now. They are currently adjusting because of these tariffs.
We're going to get to the point very quickly where a used car is $30,000. Mm-hmm. For like a piece of shit used car, you're going to be looking at what used to be a down payment for a house.
Yep. Some of the poorest countries in Africa are getting hammered by these tariffs because of textiles. So that's fun.
Europe only destroyed that continent for 200 years with colonialism, so it's real sweet of us to do that to them now when they're trying to get their feet under them after centuries of oppression, because that shit takes a while to come back from. Like, oh, you haven't been a colony for 70 years. That's not necessarily enough time if enough damage was done when you were under someone else's rule.
Yep.
Especially if you never had infrastructure developed over that time.
Be on the lookout. There's a generational flood risk for parts of the Midwest and the South, as two major severe major severe storms wipe through.
Yeah.
2 are already dead.
And I know of at least one instance, speaking of that, that because of the defunding at NOAA, certain places have not gotten the hurricane alert or tornado alerts that they should have.
Yep. Yeah. Because, again, gutting the government of all of its functions, this is what happens.
And if your thought is, well, what do I need NOAA for? I can just look at the weather on my phone. I want you to ask yourself where your weather app gets that data.
Yeah. You need a national and international centralized data repository where people are studying this around the world as a network. Your local news guys don't have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of weather equipment.
No, at best,
and they don't have a network where they all share it all to.
At best, your local
to forecast outward.
Your largest local news station has its own regional Doppler radar.
Yep.
That goes out 100 miles to tell you what's coming in the next 5 hours.
Yeah, so they can be a little bit more accurate than what they get from the National Weather Service for you. That's about it.
Yeah.
And there's no massive network of them all sharing information and then using that data to forecast outward. That is a function of a centralized government that we have just gutted. So let's see. Our trade war is continuing. Obviously, Macron is asking European companies to divest and freeze all their investment in the United States.
Not surprising.
Yep. This is just from bad to worse. But here's a fun one. Johnson, our fucking Speaker of the House, he's refusing to concede on the proxy voting battle, and he's having a tantrum.
Yeah, he's having a tantrum, and he's mostly tantruming at our representative.
Yeah.
Anna Paulina Luna, who was like one of the co-sponsors of the idea.
Yeah.
It's not a bill, it's just a rule change.
Yeah,
to allow new parents to vote by proxy for 3 months after the birth of a child, which I think is perfectly reasonable.
Johnson seems to want all the women in Congress to get back into the fucking kitchen, and that includes the Republican women. By voting by proxy, they had allowed it on a few occasions.
During COVID.
Yeah, during COVID. And Republicans used it a great deal, too, when they needed to. Because
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. This is just bad. So yep, Denmark. They're saying that you can't annex Greenland, and that's turning into a real fight. Their prime minister is basically telling Trump flat no, and it's not going to happen.
And I am seeing a growing trend in MAGA as that being a hill they are willing to die on. They are genuinely starting to believe that the most important thing for the United States of America is to annex Greenland by any means necessary.
Yeah.
They couldn't even point to... First of all, I know they're all looking on a map and they're like, it's so huge. Of course we need it.
It's not that big.
It's not that big, and it's like 90% ice sheet.
Yeah.
It's like a ring of land around a giant, sort of like covered with a giant ice sheet.
Yeah. Now, if you're trying to build a global aggressive empire that is more clearly imperialistic than the United States, based on what's kind of coming with climate change and changes around the Arctic, Greenland would be strategically interesting.
Yeah.
But why? We don't need this. We don't want this.
Don't we already have at least one base there?
Yeah. We don't need this. This is all about a type of blanket, ugly, like monarchist imperialism. Like, you know, the attempt to take a place by force because it allows us to control what will be an important trade route in 20, 30 years.
And in general, Trump, and because of him, his followers have adopted this idea that strength means, beyond all other considerations, imposing your will on others because you can.
Yeah.
That's what strength is. And if you are not actively imposing your will, whatever that is, on others, whether they be your own people or other countries or whatever, you are not strong. And I would argue that true strength is being able to get what you want and not have to do any of that.
Yeah. That's kind of strength I prefer.
You can get this, like,
you don't...
It's that misreading of Machiavelli.
Yeah, they don't... Oh, yeah, which... God, it's funny. I loved The Prince. I read it...
I haven't read it since high school.
I read it a couple of times. I read his complete annotated works. It was fantastic. Because, yeah, he wasn't all about force. Like, in fact, one of the best examples that when he was... this is not in The Prince, but it was something that helped influence The Prince, is when he recognized that power. He was acting as a diplomat at the time, and he got to watch Cesare Borgia deliver a message, and he said something along the lines of, the situation in your city displeases me, and I would hope that you would wish me to be a friend rather than find me as an enemy. And that was enough for them to alter their, like, stated trade policies, right? Like, just that's power, right?
Yeah.
Is saying you want me as your friend,
and
don't displease me.
If Trump were trying to, like, create trade policy that was more beneficial to the United States, I would still think all of this was a bad idea, but I would at least understand the impulse.
But this is a terrible way of going about it.
He's not even trying to do that.
Yeah.
He doesn't have... he doesn't believe in global trade, period,
Right.
full stop.
But we're being ripped off.
He wants everything about everything.
Raped.
He wants everything produced
Aesthetic.
by the United States. He wants everything produced in the United States by the United States solely for the United States. And that's just not how things work.
Yep.
Like, that was fine in 1850, but even then we had trade with Europe. Who do you think we sold our fucking cotton to? It didn't all just go to textile mills in the North. A lot of it went to Europe.
Yep.
And part of the Civil War was those European countries deciding whether or not they were continue to buy cotton from the Confederacy.
Yeah. It was the economics of slavery was a huge part of that conflict, and always has been. And it's never been about internal. Like, we didn't use all that cotton. We didn't use all that indigo.
No.
Like, we were growing all this indigo to make blue dye. Like, was everything blue in the U.S.? No.
Christ, their fucking uniforms weren't even blue.
Right. Exactly. So, like, you know, we weren't dyeing everything indigo, you know, because we didn't need to. The world wanted indigo because it was cool, right?
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's pretty. You know, sour gum was useful. We didn't consume that much, but we were growing a lot. you know? And so we grew these things to sell.
And we sold them.
So some court news. Supreme Court is going to hear a case that could see more Planned Parenthood clinics closed. So be on the lookout for that. Let's watch what happens there, because there are more attacks on women's abortion rights happening.
Speaking of
under the radar.
Speaking of women's abortion rights, what's the details of this case? And then I have another little anecdote about women's abortion rights.
Yep. So this case is about state Medicaid programs. Under the current law, they can't provide it, but what they're looking to do is South Carolina is looking to basically say that you can't get any Medicaid funding if you provide abortion funding at all, or
anywhere,
abortion services.
Yeah.
Right. And so some southern states are basically on board with this idea that they want to cut all of their local Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthoods for their non-abortion services.
Right. So cancer screenings, STI testing, prenatal care for people who are pregnant and want to stay pregnant and have a healthy baby.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood is like the leader in women's health care.
It is not just abortions. Abortions are what, like 3% of what they do, something like that?
Yeah.
Like it's not even, it's a fraction of what they do. The overwhelming majority of what they do is make sure that people who don't want to be pregnant don't get pregnant.
Yep.
People don't catch diseases they don't want, or if they do, they find out so they don't spread them to others. And women who really want to have a baby, helping them have the healthiest baby they possibly can in the safest way possible.
You know, planning
one's parenthood. And like, I don't care that Margaret Sanger was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Eugenicist, doesn't matter. It's no different than the fact that the Democrats were the party of slavery in the 1860s. Mm-hmm. There was a party switch. Planned Parenthood stopped being a eugenicist organization after she was gone.
Yeah, and even before she was gone, she gave up on that. She changed her position. So another high stakes hearing is coming. To determine whether or not the Trump administration violated the judge's order on the deportation flights. So there's a hearing on whether or not
they violated
the order. Yeah.
I mean, saying they weren't going to abide by the order feels like a cut and dry case.
It's one of those, but you know, there's what the administration is saying, and there's what the lawyers are saying.
I did want to talk about something that was just related to what we were just talking about, though, because this is not being reported in like major news media, but I've been seeing it on TikTok a lot, and it's beginning local press in Georgia. The state arrested a woman and is trying to prosecute a woman over her miscarriage. She'd had a miscarriage. They estimate it was somewhere around 18, 19 weeks. Mm-hmm. She was found unconscious on the sidewalk, bleeding out.
Jesus Christ.
From the miscarriage.
Okay.
And she had disposed of the remains in a dumpster, and they are trying to prosecute her for desecration of a corpse. And also, I've been following this young lady on TikTok. I don't follow her, but I've been watching her videos. She had a miscarriage at 6 weeks and 1 day. She lives in South Carolina.
Uh-huh.
But her body is not passing the fetus. So she is now at 9 weeks. She has had a dead fetus inside of her for 3 weeks. And no hospital will do a D&C until they have like 4 ultrasounds verifying that there's no heartbeat.
Jesus Christ.
So she just wakes up every day not knowing if that's the day she's going to go into septic shock or not.
Wonderful. Well, they're trying to kill you, ladies. Good job.
And that they don't care if you're white.
No, they don't.
That will not protect you. In fact, something that people need to understand about all of this reproductive rights dialing back is specifically about policing white women.
Yeah.
Black and brown women have had issues with the healthcare system for so long. The healthcare system doesn't care about them. The government doesn't really care about them.
They pretend it's this weird black genocide.
They are fine in general with like, black woman has a miscarriage and dies, whatever. Black woman gets an abortion, whatever. That's one less black baby in the world. But they want to make sure that white women are forced to have as many white babies as possible.
Yep. Unless it's a mistress.
Unless it's a mistress.
Yeah.
Unless it's a mistress of a Republican elected official.
Right. It's always an option for those with money and power.
Yeah.
They know that. So, as far as the world goes, obviously we got all this EU cutting off the U.S. Talk. Another German official was talking about how the Europe needed to apply pressure. That's we were talking a little bit about how it would be best for us in a way if we felt some pain, right?
Yeah.
And so the European leadership seems to be thinking the same thing, which is hit us hard, right? Hit us so hard, so fast, back.
As much as I don't want to live through it, I think that the faster the pain becomes absolutely unbearable, the less likely it is to last an extended period of time.
Yes, absolutely. And so the Germans, the UK, the French are all talking about basically like hitting back economically in ways that will directly hurt consumers and voters, right? So that we get our fucking shit together faster.
Yeah. Because it's going to come to a point where if particularly the Republicans don't do something to rein in their president, they are going to face something that not a goddamn one of them has faced in 20 years. Primaries from moderates.
Yeah.
Like people who have been Republicans their whole lives but are just disgusted with all of this are going to start primarying elected Republican officials from what to them is their left.
Yeah. And they're going to be
They'll still be conservatives. They'll still be traditional conservatives. They will still be odious in every possible way, but there'll be people who at least acknowledge reality.
Yeah. And we're looking at a situation based on, midterm turnout and the way public opinion is shifting around Trump again, that R+4 might not be nearly enough for a district, right?
We had 2 special elections here in Florida.
Yeah, it changed by 15 points.
Yeah. Randy Fine won his seat by 15 points.
Yep.
Donald Trump had won the 6th congressional district in Florida by 30 points in November.
Yep.
Jimmy Patronis won his election by 15 points. Donald Trump had won that district by 37 points.
Yeah.
In November.
That's a huge swing.
You're looking at an average 19-point swing in the 2 reddest districts in the state of Florida.
Yeah. That's
without abnormally high voter turnout for a special election.
This energy this movement of theirs is not insurmountable. Yeah. It's not unbeatable. Trump is not popular except among his base.
Yeah.
And he lucked out from a bunch of factors, including inflation being bad and Harris taking the blame for global inflation.
Right.
Right. And mix in a little racism, little sexism.
I think more sexism than racism, because I will say, I firmly believe that if Kamala Harris were exactly the same candidate, but a man, she'd have won.
Yeah, more than likely. But, you add those factors in, and that's how she loses. But mostly taking the blame for Biden's era of inflation that even he couldn't have done anything about. Because a big chunk of the inflation came from the spending that we did under Trump to mitigate COVID.
Yeah.
Right? The Fed warned us it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it happened.
We knew that before the 2020 election.
Yeah. There would be inflation in the next 1 to 3 years.
We knew that in October of 2020.
Yeah.
That the first couple of years there was going to be inflation just because after effects of COVID and the supply chain issues that we had, because consumer spending bounced back way before supply chains could catch up because they were wound down globally. And in some countries that were hit worse, they stayed down for longer.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Hungary is going to withdraw from the ICC, and they announced that during Netanyahu's visit to Hungary. That's fun.
That's cute. Fuck Hungary.
Yeah, fuck them.
I don't want to live in Hungary, and that's the future they want for me.
Right.
In this country.
Netanyahu says that Israel is now going to be dividing Gaza up into territories for both, basically itself.
Shocking. Who would have guessed?
Yep.
I sure am glad that we didn't put Harris in office.
Yeah, right.
All those people who didn't want to be genocide enablers.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good job. We're going to get an ethnic cleansing, the likes of which, you wish you'd never seen. But you're going to see it.
No one's seen it since the 40s.
Right. Myanmar was hit by a huge earthquake with 3,000
it was like 7.7?
Yeah.
7.8?
100 still missing, 3,000 dead. That sucks. Sorry, Myanmar.
I'm empty. We have a surprise tool for later.
Oh, what's the surprise tool? Ah,
I have an empty.
You have
an empty bottle.
Nice.
I'm not implying anything. I'm directly saying it.
A Malaysian flight went missing. Oh wow.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
I know they've been reinvestigating the Malaysian Flight 370. Like they've re-upped that investigation.
Yeah, sorry, the search for it stopped because of bad weather. My apologies. 370. Yep.
Well, they have after 10 years, they've started to aggressively amp up that. That is weird.
That is weird. New information? I don't know.
Don't know.
Those 4 soldiers that went missing when we were talking about it in the last
Yeah.
one, they died in
They died.
Lithuania. Yeah.
So
During
sad.
a training exercise. Yeah, Trump didn't really seem to give a shit.
Trump doesn't give a shit. There is not a single human being on this planet Trump wouldn't happily watch die if it stroked his ego as it was happening. He didn't even give a shit about the money. Money as a placeholder for his ego and his narcissism. He's not doing any of this for money.
Oh, this one hurts. Yeah. So, Israeli strike on a school in Gaza kills at least 27 people. A school. While also Israel is escalating its war in Syria now. Yeah. India is looking to expropriate Muslim properties. This is getting ugly.
It's getting ugly. It's getting ugly everywhere. It's not just us.
Yeah.
Hard times breed stupid, fearful men who do horrific shit. And that meme you've seen is wrong.
Yeah.
Hard times breed stupid, evil men who do horrific shit that accomplishes nothing but making things worse.
And the weak men that are created during good times, the soft men or whatever they call it, they're people who live in too much abundance. I just was reading this article in Liberal Currents about how our dumb COVID response and the anti-vaxxer movement and Donald Trump are basically like signs that people in America have it too good, right? And they forget about, we're 3 generations removed from polio, right? So now we don't need to vaccinate against it because we don't, we don't like needles, right?
Yeah, I keep forgetting to do it because ADHD. I need to make an appointment to get an MMR booster because I'm not immune to measles anymore.
But there's too much abundance in some ways that we forget about, like the way suffering can happen here in the U.S.
We don't appreciate what we have.
No, we don't.
We don't understand that we have it well. And
we have assholes who think that they could just have it their way forever, always.
That's not to say that there aren't millions of individuals who are struggling, because there are. But overall, in aggregate, we are doing as well as we can while refusing to do certain specific quality of life improvements like some sort of universal healthcare system.
Yeah. The U.S. has moved a bunch of stealth bombers, B-2s, to a U.S. base in striking distance of both Iran and Yemen. There's more than there used to be there.
Why not start a war with 78 million people?
Yep. So that is the state of the news these days.
Maybe we should happy it up.
Yeah.
I think is it time to happy things up for Sam?
Let's happy things up for Sam, shall we?
All right. And I've seen a lot of discourse about my story. And I have seen a lot of discourse from both sides, and I have considered the discourse from both sides. And I believe that in totality, that 25-hour speech that Cory Booker gave was a good thing.
Yes.
And I have decided that I am annoyed by the people who decry it as purely performative.
What the fuck does that even mean?
It doesn't mean anything. It means that he didn't murder anybody. First of all, I get really tired of, and we have friends like this on the left, who are like, protest isn't enough. You can't do this. You can't do that. None of it's good enough. You got to take the next step. I don't see them doing it.
No.
I have never seen a single one of them, I don't know, assassinate an elected official. Murder a CEO. No one's done that move. One guy's done that move. We may or may not have him in custody.
And he wasn't even a leftist.
No.
Like a little bit of left-leaning rhetoric, but
he was a very confused young man.
He was a finance bro who, seems to be like personally like harmed by the medical system, and he wasn't the first one in his family,
Yeah.
right? And so he's like, fuck it.
But
That's it.
I am tired of this LARP.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, he spoke for 25 consecutive hours.
He did.
He broke Strom Thurmond's record, which, well, yeah, that's just symbolic. It's a good symbol.
Also, Strom Thurmond cheated.
He
by the
just,
way.
like, read the fucking phone book and shit like that.
That's right. But Strom also cheated. Did you know
Yeah,
that?
he took, like, a 3-hour break.
Yeah, he went
and
took a
pissed in the
bathroom break.
closet.
Yeah, and Goldwater did that for him. But he left the Senate chamber to go to the bathroom.
Left the
and
Senate chamber.
broke the rules.
Cory Booker
not.
fasted for days,
Yep.
aggressively dehydrated himself,
Yep.
spoke for 25 hours on topic.
Yeah.
The entire 25 hours was about the situation that we are in right now. He read letters from constituents.
But he also went historical, and he talked about Frederick Douglass and Rosa Parks, and he made all of these allegories about all of the things that we have done as a country to get here.
Yeah.
Like, and that was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I kept catching really good clips from it, and I was like, all right, Corey,
And
go on with your bad self.
And then when it was over, he fucking did some interviews about it.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't even just go pass out and feed him. He didn't just, like, piss shit, feed himself, and pass out for a day and a half. He went and talked to people about what he just did, and you could hear the strain in his voice from having spoken for that long.
Yeah, no shit. I do not have that kind of
And-
stamina, and I got more stamina than most.
I think one of the more important things he did in all of that is he directly called out himself and his party for not having done enough to oppose what's happening now. Mm-hmm. He was clear about that. He took accountability for that. Chuck Schumer doesn't do that.
No. And Chuck Schumer in the middle of it trying to convince him to stop. Did you catch that? Like, he asked him questions about, like, whether or not filibusters were hurtful. And it was like, they were talking about the Ted Cruz bullshit. And it was like,
Sit down, Chuck Schumer. We
Yeah.
don't want to listen to you.
like, Chuck, fuck off.
I have-
Ted Cruz read Green Eggs and Ham
Yeah.
on a dumb filibuster for no good reason.
I have a lot of policy issues over the years with Cory Booker.
Sure.
And I think that it is ridiculous that since he was the mayor of Newark in 2006, we have been calling him the future of the Democratic Party when he's like 56 years old now.
Yeah.
Like, the Democratic Party needs to get over that as quickly as fucking possible
Now,
because
I feel bad
it's
for the guy
insane.
because he should have had a better career. He just
Right,
fizzled.
but the
Like,
Democratic Party has this habit of like, well, you know, seniority, you got to wait your turn, and then your turn comes when you're 75 fucking years old.
Yeah, I think that shit's stupid.
And you're fucking
Absolutely.
what's his name on the fucking oversight committee? What's his name? Jerry something, right?
I don't even remember.
He's got throat cancer and he's probably going to die.
But we're going to keep him there.
We're going to keep him there because he's
Yeah.
waited his turn. It's his turn. He's 78. But yeah, I think that was a good thing. I think it inspired a lot of people who weren't otherwise paying too close attention. Man, if he, and I assume it is in his mind because he has tried once already, he runs in 2028. I think he's positioned himself as one of the front runners
Right?
with this, which I'm sure was part of his calculus. I think it was a good thing. I get very tired of the online left in particular never thinking anything is good enough.
No, well, they can't.
And primarily only focusing on criticizing the Democrats and ignoring everything the Republicans do.
Yeah, that part really bothers me because it's like,
that to this day, especially true on TikTok, that to this day I see more critiques of Kamala Harris from the left than Donald Trump, who is the fucking president who is actively destroying this fucking country.
yeah, it
Boggles the mind.
It's
In
absolutely
fact,
going.
In fact, I also see some leftists offering it's like weird faint praise where they're like, well, you know, he's doing more to dismantle American imperialism than anyone has in the history of this country.
Wow. No, I guess. Not in a good way.
Not in a good way, and not in a way that benefits the rest of the world.
Also the until question.
Yeah.
So, problem with fascist economies is you can get things to look good on paper for a little while you're getting rid of immigrants and you're cracking down, you're forcing the economy to go in certain directions, right?
Right.
But then you run into problems because you can't You can't run an economy by cracking down in the markets over and over and over again in ways that the markets don't want to naturally respond to. Again, you can regulate things, sure, but trying to basically control who you trade with, where you trade, how much you trade, right? Like all of that, trying to force corporations to do things, basically telling companies that if you don't support the administration, you're not patriotic, and then we're going to start investigating you. Whatever you're doing to authoritarianize your economy.
Right.
That'll look good for a minute, sometimes. And then you will need an external enemy to fight, right? And when you also run out of internal enemies, they always have to move on to an external enemy in order to maintain their power. Right? Those are the two things about fascism that are pretty fucking explicit and constant.
It's happened every time.
And so, yeah, let's say that
it's been
let's say that gay people go kind of quiet again, and like most of them lead back to the closet, or they just stop doing as much pride, and they're like just
and let's be honest here,
and trans people go into hiding, and we get rid of the immigrants.
You're still not going to change people's like opinions on gay and trans people.
Yeah,
but especially like people who know gay and trans people. Like
exactly. So you can't go hard enough.
You can't win that culture war.
Yeah. So. But you can nudge them back to being quieter. Right? And that's what they're going to do. They're going to nudge them back to being quieter. Okay, they'll be quieter, and they won't be as easy to demonize. Okay, done. You get rid of a bunch of immigrants. Done. The administration's out of enemies.
Right?
It's out of an internal enemy that it has to fight. Which looks like why we're picking all these fights internationally on trade.
Yeah, one of them might be the one that we get to go to war with.
Yeah. We might get to go to war with one of them. I mean, one of them may cut us off on trade or hit us with a really big tariff on something we need.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right? And when that happens,
people who don't understand,
try to invade over it?
Who don't fundamentally understand global trade need to realize that there are certain things that our economy is incapable of functioning without.
Yeah.
That we cannot get here.
So because of that, they
don't exist here.
We're in this space where we need to recognize it and push back.
Right.
And there's a lot of hope for that, though. I mean, Musk, that Wisconsin race, $26 million blown on a state Supreme Court race.
And
the state Supreme Court is already having a hissy fit, so are state Republicans.
Yeah.
They are losing their fucking minds.
And the fact that he tried to bribe people with $1 million paychecks, like...
Yep.
Like, the federal government's not going to investigate him for that, but it's not like he didn't violate Wisconsin state laws either.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, sure, maybe nothing's going to happen about it, but it shows that he was trying to signal he can buy voters, right? And by giving away those couple, like the lottery, it triggers that impulse in people's brains that they could be next.
I could be a winner.
Right. I could be a winner. If I vote this way, I could be on the team that's giving away $1 million checks. That sounds great. They still lost by 12 points.
Yeah.
Like, it was a blowout.
It was a blowout. Yeah, it was a repudiation of the idea he was pushing.
Yep. The funny thing is, Democratic candidates across the country right now are, during their stump speeches or like interviews, begging Musk to come endorse their candidate and campaign for their opponent. They're begging.
That has to be like just making him even more insane.
Exactly. Some of them are like, "I'll buy his ticket, coach. I'll fly him, coach here."
Well, I thought they were the party of empathy. I thought they were the party. I thought they were nice, but they're being mean to me. Tim Walz is being mean. He said mean things about me.
You know what? Here's the thing.
He said he was happy my stock price was going down. That's mean.
Yeah. Don't have empathy for bad people.
No,
I have zero empathy. Like, I do not have a shred of empathy for the humanity of Donald Trump or Elon Musk.
No,
I don't see them as people.
No.
I do not see them as worthy of the oxygen that they breathe.
They are literal demons.
They are literal demons. The Alex Jones style literal demons.
Yeah.
That must be purged from our society.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, every single one of them has to be removed from our
The entire
society.
political wing of the executive branch
Yes.
needs to be excised like a malignancy.
Like the cancerous tumor that it is.
Yes,
and it needs to be removed from politics and never given any power whatsoever ever again.
Yeah.
Elon Musk needs to lose his fortune. He should be allowed to have a couple $100 million and go hide somewhere. And
Afraid.
And I mean hide. I mean that he should be allowed to move to one non-extradition country with a couple $100 million, right? And if he ever leaves, whatever plane he is on is the immediate target of airstrikes. Like,
That's fair.
Elon, if you ever hear this, or the fucking Grok AI ever hears this, I firmly believe the world's governments should put a hit on you.
My favorite thing is knowing that Grok would agree with us.
Right? But we can push back, and we are successfully pushing back again. We talked about this last week, that doomerism and defeatism doesn't help. And look, a week later, 2 special elections that, while Democrats lost, they made up 15 points.
I said in both those elections I didn't expect them to win, but if they, depending on how much they lost by,
it would be a sign.
That would be a philosophical win, and we got the philosophical win in both instances. Especially Florida's first. The fucking district that kept sending Matt Gaetz to the House of Representatives. The place where his approval rating went up after the stories of him buying sex from a minor.
Right? Like, that's... Now, the thing about this is...
The guy who took his seat took it by... like 20 some odd points less.
The thing we cannot forget is that Donald Trump is the singular leader of this crazy ass cult movement, right?
That's not bad at all. Fucking people complain. It's delicious.
But they do not show up without him on the ballot.
No.
Right? They're not going to keep showing up for him if he hurts their pocketbooks, because they're going to have that cognitive dissonant problem.
No,
right? So
they're not going to vote for somebody else, but they're just not going to vote at all. They're going to disengage from the political process.
He turned out a bunch of non-voters, and it's not everybody that votes for him. The voting,
he's lost Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now it may be temporary, but voting blocks, elections are not ever single causal, right? And so when I talk about how, say, Bernie had a problem with minorities, I don't mean that his problem with minorities was the end-all be-all to it, right? It was just a factor. It
was enough of a factor that it prevented him from being the nominee.
Yeah, I mean...
Among other things.
And those other things. He didn't run a shadow primary. I had this big argument with a listener. I love you, Sam, by the way.
He should have never called himself a socialist.
Right. Or at least tried to walk it back towards the end there.
And, that's the thing. You look at his policy proposals.
They're not all that socialist.
They're not that socialist.
They're Demsock at best.
Yeah. So calling himself a socialist is kind of not true anyway.
Exactly. But, he had these other factors, and he didn't run a good shadow primary. For the conspiracy-minded in the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, or the non-Democratic voters who are big Bernie stands, the shadow primary is actually where you win.
That's how you lay all the groundwork for what comes with when actual voting starts.
Exactly. And so, when you complain about there was a coronation for Clinton, you're right, but, right? In 2008, there was a coronation for Clinton.
Yeah.
Right? How did that end?
Barack Obama. Why? Because somebody ran a good shadow primary. It wasn't a massive one. No,
but
it was smart.
It was smart. It
was
strategic.
It was strategic.
He got a handful of really good key endorsements from people who were popular. He got a couple of unions to peel off from wanting to endorse her early, right? And so he lined up a few steps that would have that sucked some of the power from her, right? And then he ran a transformative campaign. That Bernie ran a transformative campaign. He just didn't have...
He did an incredible amount of influence on the party platform that year.
Yes, amazing. And all of that is a good thing, but he ran as the issues guy, ran a weak shadow primary, and had issues with certain constituencies that he didn't overcome. But that being said, the thing you learn about that is he could have, right?
Yeah.
I think he possibly could have won. I don't think he could have won in 2020, but against Trump in 2016, maybe.
Until you hit Super Tuesday, where you're just like, well, this math ain't mathin'.
Right.
If he'd run a more strategic campaign before that point, I think he could have gone into Super Tuesday strong enough that he could have taken it.
Yeah, and if he did, he probably could have beaten Trump.
Yeah,
whether or not
I think so.
I think it's a probably. I
think it's. I genuinely think.
Will say that I always couch this against. Team Trump was boosting Bernie for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And I think their calculation among the GOP was, if it hurts Clinton, great, and if he beats Clinton, we will hammer him as a commie over and over and over again.
But also, like, by the same
Bernie
token,
had. What I was going to say with that is that Bernie had more positive coverage than either of those other two candidates combined. Right? Both Clinton and Trump. Bernie got more positive coverage than both of them combined. So, if he won, he would have then had to have faced the negative coverage.
He also would not have done when the negative coverage came, since it would have exclusively focused on calling him a commie.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have panicked.
No, but he had this bad tendency of not coming off sounding great whenever he was attacked.
He's
he's
he's good at giving a stump speech.
Exactly. He doesn't pivot well.
No.
And that's and when it came to my vote, where I was a big supporter of his and gave him money and really dialed in with his campaign early on.
Yeah, and he would have
But then when it came time for me to vote, I was torn. It was because I didn't like his management style.
And I'll say this: I think he would have been a decent president, but I do not think he would have been a life-changing, transformative one.
No, I think he would have been a lot like Carter, where he would have run into conditions he couldn't control.
Right. COVID,
right?
The aftermath of COVID.
Yep.
Or he would have been in there for COVID. So yeah, we would have seen a wildly different response when that happened, but I don't know
what it would have looked like.
I don't know how it would have been spun. I don't know how Fox News would have reacted to his response to COVID.
And I also don't think he would have been able to get the House and the Senate on board with the things that he wanted, and he would have been really ineffective. Right?
No, just because our political system is kind of stupid. If he'd have proposed the exact same stimulus that Trump did for COVID, I don't know that he'd have been able to get it through just because he's him.
Yeah.
And it would have been more viewed as some commie plot. Because our politics is fairly stupid. I don't want to discourage anyone. Most of our voters are fucking morons.
Oh yeah, they are. Hey, speaking of morons, but also humans, right? Because humans, our closest genetic relatives apparently might have hints of a proto-language in their calls and hoots.
Really?
The bonobo.
Of course, it's the bonobo. I fucking love the bonobo.
I absolutely adore them. I want to talk about bonobos
so much
for a minute here because I love them.
Why would we not want to learn from a species that perfected the hello, how are you blowjob?
Right? They give
oral sex as a greeting?
They give hand jobs as handshakes. They aggressively masturbate constantly.
They've got to be happy as fuck. There's a reason why you don't hear the stories about bonobos. You hear about chimps.
Exactly, and they are unlike chimps. We think it's chimps. People talk about it being chimps, but chimps are our second closest genetic relative. The closest living genetic relative in the animal kingdom to us, the bonobo.
They don't fight the fact that they're a social species that needs one another to get by.
Nope.
They just fucking lean into it.
They lean into it, and they're like,
how do
we organize a society around it? Well, we all like sex. Violence works sometimes, and so we'll have that
sex
as a
works
backup.
Every time.
But sex works most of the time. Not every, but most of the time.
Sex will get you to do things threats or even actual violence could never convince you to do.
Exactly. So bonobos save violence for the most limited of circumstances.
When sex is not an option.
And then they use socialization and sex as the primary way of keeping a cohesive society amongst the group. And we should learn from that, where violence is our last resort, we keep in the pocket, but we socialize, we empathize, and we fuck. And I think we should fuck. Not you and I, Steve.
Not you and I. God, no.
God, no.
No one needs that.
Even if we were so inclined.
No one needs that.
No one needs that.
No one needs or wants that. There are people who have just turned the podcast off.
Yeah,
They're like looking and they're like, ew, no,
Lori-
brother, ew.
Lori might be interested in that idea.
Horrified.
Only she'd be horrified, but she would also
Brother, ooh.
she would talk about it forever.
Yeah, that's fair.
We would never hear the end of it. But sex as a way of keeping social cohesion, I think humans really need to just get over this whole like religious mores bullshit. Like, and again, if you're worried about the population, like fucking dipshits like Musk, right?
Make
like,
fucking cool and not a problem.
Yeah, like make sex cool, not a problem.
Like, do you
provide us social safety nets that make things really comfortable.
Do you know how many people who don't have kids would have kids if they felt financially secure enough to do it? Like, you're always freaking out about fucking birth rates. Make people feel comfortable raising a child in the goddamn world, and they'll fucking jump at the chance. I won't. They will.
Stop freaking out about abortion and just like give us some like basic income and like housing like fucking guarantees and healthcare guarantees. Right? Give us some of that shit and then tell us that it's all cool to fuck.
What if you created a situation where like getting pregnant was almost never a reason to panic?
Yeah. It would be amazing.
You'd see more birth. More people would have more kids.
Yeah. And
if they could do it like securely.
So social conservatism's fear of sexuality, a big problem.
Right, especially when they fetishize birth rates.
Yep. And our fiscal conservatism is a huge problem for making it viable for people to want to have children.
Oh, yes.
If you fix both of those problems, the West will not have a birth problem.
No.
Like, sure, a bunch of brown people might also have kids at high rates.
And you know what?
But white people will have more children at an increased rate. I guarantee you.
We will have kids with them.
Yeah.
And it will make the species stronger.
Like, I would have no problem with a society where we're all just enjoying living and not afraid of having children. And the West, quote unquote, would not see a collapsing birth rate.
Right.
If like it was like, oh yeah, no, like sex is cool, have as much of it as you possibly want, and also we provide health care.
Yeah, like, and like if we could get to the point where everyone could acknowledge that white people were a thing that doesn't exist that we just made up, like that alone, that's like half our problems.
Yeah. So the bonobos like actually have like a human-like complex grammar, and they combine sounds in ways that previously thought unique to humans. So they do have like the underpinnings of an actual language. Do
you think it is possible for me to learn to speak bonobo and abandon all to live with them as one of them? Can I be bonobo?
It's possible. I mean,
I just eat fucking berries.
I wish they looked better.
Yeah,
because they're very sexual creatures. I wish they were hotter. Like, you know.
But you just
have you seen the size of their vaginas?
I have never looked at a bonobo's vagina.
Oh, I have watched. I have enjoyed some interesting videos of they masturbate aggressively, and there was this whole like 20-minute video of just like female bonobos like going to town until like branches fell and they fell out of trees and they didn't stop.
Like just as they're falling, plummeting to the ground.
And they're scissoring.
I gotta finish before I hit.
They're scissoring while falling out of a fucking tree. It's amazing. I love bonobos.
And yet we decide that we're going to be chimps.
We decide, which are a bit more aggressive and violent. Even though...
A bit?
Quite a bit more. But they also have weird societal, like, they're not always patriarchal. Sometimes they're matriarchal. They enforce rigidly like concepts where like the what you would consider your alpha male, like if they push things around too much, all the females get together and beat them to death.
That's fair. We could learn from them.
Yeah, we could learn from them again, because and like they'll if they murder like a younger like what's considered like the dominant male like murders a younger male, like the whole group will just fucking end that guy. Like. I think that's amazing.
Maybe we can learn a lot from them, too.
We could. Yeah, so, here's where we're at. We have options. we have so much abundance that we could make a better society, but we've got to get out of our way.
I
And we got
know.
to get out of the way. Like, stop letting assholes like
I
Musk
know.
and Trump be in the way.
I know we are going to, in one way or another, get through all of this together. I know that. We've been in worse spots before.
Oh, yeah.
And we've done it. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how messy it's going to be. I don't know how many people we're going to lose. We're going to lose people.
Sure.
People are going to die because of what's coming.
We've been through worse.
Whether
this looks like
it's
it's
because
worse
of
now.
violence or... And that's also... It looks worse now because we can see everything all the time.
Right, and because we haven't been through it ourselves. Like, which is, again, like a privilege.
Yeah,
like
but...
the global West, particularly the United States, has that privilege of, like, except for those communities which we always keep fucking over, they don't, like, most of us don't experience real oppression, right?
Yeah.
And don't experience real toil. And
Yeah,
sure,
anything-
I could say things were harder before the digital age, etc. Like, yeah, and they were, and like
In some ways.
and I appreciate the things about life that were harder in the 90s and the 80s, right? Like, in the early 2000s, as far as
Shit was also more chill.
yeah, shit was also more chill. But I appreciate the ways that like life had these struggles that we didn't have, because they taught me some things about life, right? But the globe as a entity, right, has all these people that face real poverty, real starvation,
Yeah.
real war and conflict, and gangs that like rove around not just small parts of a city. Like, again, I have lived in cities where gangs have controlled a portion of
like
the city,
a couple, like a neighborhood or a couple
neighborhood, yeah.
blocks.
And I have been to these places where, yeah, like the police don't often go, right? Like law and order falls apart there. And we've lost that too, because over time that has like eroded, right? But the rest of the world faces like whole cities or countries where like lawlessness is like a risk, and that their local military and police are captured by criminals, and like that exists out there, right?
Yeah.
And we don't face that. So we
No.
have this privilege of not knowing what real suffering looks like.
And that's why this is a lesson we apparently need to learn
Yeah.
anew every 100 years.
Yeah.
Because it is a 100-year cycle. It happened in 1828, happened in 1929, and here we are in 2025.
Yeah, it's a give or take a decade on either side. It's like a
everything.
70 to 110 year cycle.
Yeah.
Of
Although our cycle, it's like there's like a 4-year window.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, like, technology also has a big part to play in it. I was watching this TikTok historian talk about that. Like, technology is a big thing where you get this, things start to get bad during a period of time where a large generation is supplanted by another large generation as far as political power goes, right? And there is a big technological shift that changes labor and or communication, right? When those two events coincide, right, along with a period of material abundance,
Yeah.
things start to collapse.
That's one of the reasons why I'm optimistic about these alternatives that TikTok are popping up, because they are decentralized and they allow for more actual, genuine discourse.
Yeah.
And
But-
unrestricted, like, sharing of information.
But my worry for that, like, is like I was saying about that whole like change in communication technology, right? Like the century immediately following the creation of the printing of the Gutenberg Bible and the Gutenberg
printing press,
right, was the most violent century humans had experienced up to that point, right? Because all of a sudden religion went far and wide in a violent way, and it's slightly democratized. So you have the rise of Protestantism, right? And then you get to a expansion of printing technology that allows newspapers to happen, that leads to the revolutionary period of the United States, France, England, right? That was all about printing technology allowing newspapers and democratization of information, right? And then you've got the invention of like the radio and the telegram, right? Leading to the world wars,
Yeah.
right? And now we're in a period where what we're talking over, the internet, is the new hotness, and it's a century later. And we have a large generation being supplanted by another large generation, right?
I hope that the next
During
step,
a period of abundance.
I
It's
really
amazing.
hope that the next advancement is not just direct beaming of information into our brains. I'm going to kill it.
Leave me a sip. Perfect. So get the last of the Malort here.
You're cowards if you can't do that.
If you can't drink Malort,
I want you to notice I didn't make a face.
I make faces.
I swished Malort around my mouth. It touched every surface of my lips and gums, my upper palate, my lower palate. Everything was coated with Malort, and I fucking liked it.
I drink this shit like a couple times a week because I have problems.
Are we sure we're not just like 70-year-old dock workers in Chicago?
I mean, we have the energy of them. Except I fuck. I don't know about you.
I like some pierogi too.
I do love pierogi.
I love pierogi, man.
But
Oh, fucking Italian beef sandwich.
my God.
Fucking dip it in the au jus.
do you want to go to Portillo's after this? We can go to Portillo's.
I've never been.
You've never been?
I've never been to Portillo's.
After this, let's go to Portillo's.
Fuck yeah.
All right, I'll take you.
I haven't had a real meal today.
All right, go. Like,
Hell
I could use
yeah.
food. So, we're going to do Chicago food. Because I love Chicago South.
And we just finished a bottle of Malort.
And we did. You know what I love about Chicago? Like, the people there, like, are weirdly healthier because they live in a city, right?
They walk everywhere.
And they walk everywhere. But they eat like fucking garbage. It's great.
Philly's the same way.
Yeah, it's like, it's fried things and meat and processed meats like cheeses. I fucking love them.
There are only two cities in this country I am absolutely positive I could live and thrive in outside of here. Philadelphia and Chicago.
New Orleans. I could thrive in New Orleans.
I think New Orleans would kill me.
I mean, it could.
It'd be
kill me.
fun.
I mean, yeah. I love the food. I love the food.
They do have the best food in the country.
Yeah, like
that. I don't even think. I will fight anybody who even tries to argue with me on that point. They have the best food in the United States of America.
They have restaurants that deserve Michelin stars and will never get looked at, right?
Right.
And they've got little like fucking like
And like
they've got little black owned like family restaurants with like amazing sausage and fucking breakfast
and like
food.
everything
and,
is basically like in terms of socioeconomics, like peasant food.
yeah, like
And it is the most delicious food you will ever have in your life.
yeah, and even the upscale places, like they're not bad as far as price goes.
Yeah.
Like the Galatoire's, which is like the most like fancy. It's a really expensive place on Bourbon Street, and it's really good. Like, and it's it's where fucking while I was there, Jerry Jones was eating at like a couple of tables away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was eating a couple of tables away from Jerry Jones. It was fucking nice.
Nice.
So me and a billionaire in the same restaurant at the same time. But the steak was less than you'd find a comparable steak here in the Tampa area.
We do have some good steakhouses.
Yeah, and we've got some great steakhouses. That like this was as good as our best steakhouses. Like not quite as good as Burns as far as like the ambiance of the experience, right?
Like that steakhouse, fucking
Right.
high end.
But the food is like I think the steak was better than Burns, right?
I'm not surprised.
But it was like $10 cheaper for the steak and like $8 cheaper for my sides, and for two of us plus drinks.
Hey man, they
like-
do like cheap drinks in New
Yeah.
Orleans.
So I wound up spending $300 when I would have spent $400.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Like, and it was
That's why my
it was
sisters.
great, and I got a billionaire fucking on the other side of the bar from me.
That's why my
It's great.
sister's winter home is in New Orleans.
Yeah.
She owns a motel in South Jersey that she runs every summer from like Easter until like the week before Halloween, and then her and her husband go to New Orleans to the house they own. I think they're in the Garden District. I can't remember exactly. I've never been there.
If we start getting real podcasts, if you people start giving us all your money,
When we one day set up a means by which you can give us your money.
yeah, the Grift promises we will have a studio like in New Orleans,
We need to
Chicago,
do-
and Philly.
We need to do like a live remote from some like little hole in the wall dive bar just outside the French Quarter. Set up like a laptop and
that'd be
some
great.
mics and fucking, you know,
So if you start giving us all of your money,
we can afford to do this.
we can afford to do this.
And we can afford to buy and burn a Tesla, which is apparently terrorism now.
But if we buy it, we can commit legal terrorism. It'd
Yeah.
be my property, and they can't stop me.
And I will say, when it comes to the damaging Teslas, like, I have no problem with anything anybody wants to do to a Tesla sitting in a Tesla lot. Fucking up somebody's car after they already bought it.
Sure.
That's kind of a bitch move. Especially if it's an older model.
Yeah, because it may not be as well
Like,
insured.
you see somebody who bought, like, a Model S, like, 10 years ago.
I get it. I get it. That being said, I really don't care about the swastika.
No, there's no excuse for owning a Cybertruck.
Yeah.
We knew he was crazy when that fucker came out.
Oh, absolutely.
We knew he was a
100%.
piece of shit when that fucker came out. You spent $130,000 on that piece of shit when it came out. You deserve whatever happens to you.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for a Cybertruck. And you don't think it pisses me off about the Cybertruck? This is a little bit of a side. I'm going to rant before we go.
we do this.
If we were living in the future we were promised,
The Cybertruck wouldn't even
the
be a thing.
Cybertruck would seem reasonable.
It would be like this weird retro 80s car.
Yeah, it would be.
You know what I mean? Like,
it would be like a throwback muscle car type thing.
yeah, like, oh, look at how we used to design cars for
Yeah.
video games 40 years ago.
Like, I hate the idea of flying cars. I think they should never happen no matter what. But, like, everything else we were promised about the future by now, I'm pissed we didn't get. I'm pissed we just decided to, like, abandon infrastructure progress 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And not make things cooler.
And
Like,
that's-
man, we got cell phones and they're cool, but, like, we could live in a world where everything we interacted with was the quality level of, like, an iPhone or a high-end Samsung.
I actually want to touch on that for a minute, too. So, in comparison, U.S. federal employment today, right, is less than 60% of its peak. And less than 30%, we're 30% lower
Okay.
than the average of the last century.
Okay.
Like, and by that I mean as a percentage of the workforce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a percentage of GDP, government spending is actually lower than it has been in decades.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, we're going into large amounts of debt because the dollar numbers have gone up. Inflation happens, right? And to buy anything, it goes
And,
up.
you know, when you're a
right?
government in good standing with the rest of the world, up until a certain point, debt doesn't matter that much.
Exactly. And that is the problem.
It's not
And the-
worth panicking about.
And the other thing about debt, like, we confuse the debt for a lot of things when really it's just an agreement to pay interest on money that we're not even actually technically borrowing.
Yeah, it's like selling fucking treasury bonds and shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's the overwhelming majority of our debt.
But we're not actually technically even borrowing it because the borrowing actually happens as a separate mechanism. And then
Yeah.
we reconcile it later.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
Like, you could just wipe out the debt by just refusing to issue new bonds.
Yeah. Or you could wipe out the debt by, like, paying it.
Yeah, just pay it off.
But the reason we don't do that is because, like, the debt is investors who want a stable return on their investment.
And when people see you, and it's just like having a credit card. When your credit card company sees you carrying debt responsibly, they up your credit limit.
Yeah.
And they give you more credit to use,
Exactly.
theoretically responsibly.
And knowing that you won't use it most of the time until there's an emergency or
Right.
something, right? And then once you use it, they get their rate. But most debt is held by U.S. citizens.
Yeah, the overwhelming
right?
majority is held by U.S. citizens and institutions.
An eighth, one out of every $8 dollars in debt to the government is owned by the government.
Yeah, it's like buying a fucking treasury bond for a child when they're born.
Well, no. One out of $8 dollars, one out of every $8 dollars of the debt is actually owned by the government.
Okay.
They wind up, because it's just an accounting factor,
Yeah.
right? They go over.
These are all fundamentally just numbers and machines.
Exactly. It's all just like, but so imagine Congress says that an agency has to do X, Y, and Z, right? And the cost of that winds up being 40% more expensive than Congress thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
The agency is still going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So they go into debt against the Treasury. The Treasury still cuts the check because the law says that they have
to cut the check.
Cut the checks. Right. So that debt becomes owned by that agency. Yeah. And where does that go? Nowhere.
And fundamentally, none of this is real money until it's in your pocket to spend it.
Exactly.
It's all just imaginary numbers and computers until it's yours and you can exchange it for goods.
The only place that matters is right here, right? Where lines go up, lines go down, right? And it's because experts who balance all of that shit against reality and real production factor it in. Right. But yeah, one out of every $8 owed by the federal government is owed to the agency by the agency. That's it. So 1/8 of the debt doesn't really exist. It's just the federal government owing itself for cutting the checks.
It's like going into your bank account and advancing money.
Yeah.
From your little advance, whatever.
Yeah, from your savings account.
It's your money.
It's your money. That's it. You're just advancing yourself in the future.
You'll replace it at some point.
The other 7 out of every $10 owed by the government are owed to U.S. citizens. It's just retirement funds and fucking pension funds, right? Owning treasuries. It's you buying fucking T-bills. Yeah. Right?
And
you buy that shit.
You as a citizen buying a T-bill, I know for a fact no one out there who does that thinks of it as increasing the debt.
But you do.
But you do.
Yeah. And all you're doing is currently stabilizing the price of the economy. Because by every dollar in debt that they are attaching to it, as far as real debt goes, allows them to print more money.
Yeah, and in the global economy, this is all just predicated entirely on goodwill.
Exactly.
So it does not pay, and I want to be perfectly clear on this, it is not a good idea to destroy all the goodwill you have around the fucking world.
No, it doesn't.
If you are worried about the debt as a thing,
or your spending, your personal fucking wallet,
making enemies of everyone does not do anything but make the problem exponentially worse
by mountains. And so
in ways that you don't even realize until years later.
Yeah. So with that said, the Trump administration is absolutely asinine.
Yeah.
But the grift, this show, we deserve all of your money because we can get intoxicated and still talk to you about global econ.
I will make this deal with the
Trump. We're cool as fuck.
I will make this deal with the Trump administration right now. Okay. Right this second. This is a deal. This is a legitimate deal that I am offering you people.
They're not listening, but we're
not listening, but this is it. If you just put us in charge.
Oh yeah.
We'll do it for half of the $8 million a day you're paying Elon.
You know, the funny thing is, I would make a mess of the government, but
I couldn't intentionally fuck up the government as much as they're doing.
Exactly. I couldn't fuck it up intentionally as much as they're doing.
And I'll say this.
And to be honest, if they gave me the reins to run their government for a year, I know guaranteed that I would drop enough money on infrastructure that it would create a boom.
I'll say this. Donald John Trump, if you want to be the single most popular president in the entirety of the United States of America, if you want to be loved as a fucking savior,
bearded white guys,
just put us in charge and give us.
Oh, we will make you popular.
25% of what you're paying Elon a day, and you will be written of. They will write fucking sonnets about your ass.
You just have to let us have as much control as Elon does, but pay us $2 million a day.
And you know what? I'll say this.
And I will give you an economy you are dreaming of.
We will do it in a way.
Hell, give me $2 million a year.
Yeah. We will do it in a way that
And a guaranteed 8-year contract.
that you don't have to worry about courts telling you no.
Oh, yeah. I
We'll
can get around
find
that.
the
I can get around the courts.
angles.
I'm not even a lawyer, but I know how you fucked up already.
I don't like you, and as much as I have been angry at the United States government my entire life,
Yep.
I love the idea of the people of this country enough that I will do it for only $2 million.
Like, I hate the United States and love its people.
Yeah.
Like, I want the United
want them
States
to
to
thrive.
succeed. I want us to thrive. So, give us your money, Donald Trump. Do not give it to Elon.
And here's the thing.
He's an idiot.
Don, think of it this way.
And he wants to be the king, not you.
You're not even giving... Yeah, we don't want power. We don't want... We will let you have all the credit. You're not even using your money.
Yeah, you're using my money.
You're using the American people's money. You're using our money to pay us more money.
Right.
For us to do for you what Elon cannot.
And he really can't. Because, one,
Yeah?
everything he does is predicated on him making a buck at the end of it.
Yeah, we'll make you a buck.
I'll make it. But, I mean, Elon is trying to make a buck for himself.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, if you are worried about prison, we can do all of this in a way that you don't have to worry about that, man.
I mean,
You don't have to worry.
Here's the
Like,
thing.
I mean, shit you've already done.
All right, Trump,
that's on you.
at the end of it, you pardon yourself, you pardon us. Doesn't happen. None of this matters.
No one will be upset either. Left or right.
And on that note, this has been The Grift.
Give us
Somebody,
anybody.
anyone out there, give us all your fucking money.
We're going to Portillo's. That shit ain't free.
You know, I'm getting a Chicago style hot dog and a hot beef.
Hot beef. I just need a hot beef.
I'm getting both. You cannot.
I will watch you enjoy the neon relish.
Get a goddamn. I will buy you a Chicago dog just to buy you one. I don't care. Like,
All right, I'll eat a hot dog.
Like,
It'll be my hot dog this year.
You can't eat Chicago style food without eating all of it.
It's true. They are a sausage-based people.
They are. Yeah. Like,
Very meaty.
My
Very meaty people.
My home localization. I grew up just not far from the city. I want the beef and the meat in my mouth.
I mean,
And on that note,
yeah.
it's been The Grift.
We'll do this next week, and maybe we'll have a topic. But if not, hey, fuck
Gonzo,
you'll still fucking listen.
Are you going to set up some form of monetization for us?
We should do that.
We should do
We
that.
should at least have like a coffee where people can like give us $5 because they like the show.
Right.
It's like, hey, we'll throw you $5 and then we split it.
Maybe our Russian handler will send us a bunch of money.
Hey, dude in Poland.
Dude in Poland.
Do you have any ideas? Email us. We have an email, right?
We do.
What is? What do we have an email? Like, I don't even have access to the email.
I gave you an email.
I know we have an email. I've never used it. I've never looked at it. I might have emails. Fuck.
I gave you access to an email.
We have an email. God, we're gonna find something like vitally. Have you checked the email lately? Do you check it?
I've checked my. Ooh, do we have a centralized email I set up and didn't?
I think we have a centralized email.
I may not have looked at that.
We're gonna have like fucking Signal fucking screenshot leaked group chats.
That would be
Somebody like tried to give us as a fucking boon, and then we fucking missed it because we don't. We have ADHD, both of us.
Yeah, both of us. What does? I'm gonna look and see if do we have an email account?
I think we have an email account. We are a well-oiled machine here at the Grift. Who knows what it's doing?
Very good at what we're doing.
We are professionals. By which I mean, I am a professional at selling kava and kratom to people who desperately want it, and he is somewhat professional at owning an establishment where that happens.
Like, I used to be better in life. Don't get me wrong. I used to have things together. People used to say that Al had shit together. Not anymore.
Nobody says that anymore.
No,
That is not. That is not a thing that we say.
Thanks, buddy.
Well, for being honest here.
All right. So the YouTube doesn't say. What is it?
Anyway, we will figure out if we have an email, and we will. I will. All right. If
Do
we
have an email,
we will figure out if we have an email between now and the time that I actually upload all this shit, and I will put the email where you can reach us theoretically in the description.
And
I will put it in the description of every upload henceforth.
I have set up an email for me with the company. I've set up an email for you with the company.
I vaguely remember this.
You have it. It exists.
Is it a Gmail?
It is.
I do remember you setting up something, but I've kind of sworn we have one that's like a general one.
So we do have a Reverend-Al at thegriffshow.com.
Okay.
And there's Gonzo at thegriffshow.com.
It's not a bad email address.
It is
I
not.
like it. Pops.
It does. I haven't been into the like Google Workspaces side to like look and see if we've got emails in like a general inbox that I might have set up by mistake.
You might want to do that this evening.
I'm going to look. But anyway.
We'll let you know if we figure anything out ever at all.
Reverend-Al or Gonzo at thegriffshow.com are good email addresses.
And eventually I will check it.
And if you tell us that you have a signal chat that includes the SecDef, we'll read it.
I will.
And we will put things live on the air. It might even be screenshots in the background.
Dear,
I don't know how that works. This guy works that shit.
Dear Anonymous, we will be your new WikiLeaks.
Oh, yeah, there's like here's the thing.
I promise.
We have just enough followers that if you send it to us, it'll get distributed. But we also, like, won't go national on any given day.
Yeah.
Ever.
It's like that sweet spot.
That sweet spot of...
That sweet spot.
They can't arrest, like, the 37 people who listen to it.
Yeah.
But also, once it's out, it will go viral.
Yeah. It'll independently of us.
So give us all your money.
It's called plausible deniability. Give us all your money.
We're the Grift.
Until next week.
Bye.
Bye.